Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson, Chapter 6, pages 73 through 75. Perpetual Motion. Wait! Beelzebub interrupted the captain. This, what you have just told us, must surely be just that short-lived idea which the strange three-brained beings breeding on the planet Earth called perpetual motion, and on account of which at one point a great many of them there went quite, as they themselves say, mad, and many even perished entirely. It once happened there on that ill-fated planet that somebody in some way or another got into his head the, as they say, crazy notion that he could make a mechanism that would run forever without requiring any material from outside. This notion so took everybody's fancy that most of the queer fellows of that peculiar planet began thinking about it and trying to realize this miracle in practice. How many of them paid for this short-lived idea with all the material and spiritual welfare which they had previously with great difficulty acquired? For one reason or another, they were all quite determined to invent what in their opinion was a simple matter. External circumstances permitting, many took up the invention of this perpetual motion without any inner data for such work. Some from the reliance upon their knowledge, others upon luck, but most of them just from their already complete psychopathy. In short, the invention of perpetual motion was, as they say, the rage, and every crank felt obliged to be interested in this question. I was once in one of the towns there where models of every kind and innumerable descriptions of proposed mechanisms for this perpetual motion were assembled. What wasn't there? What ingenious and complicated machines did I not see? In any single one of these mechanisms I saw there must have been more ideas and wiseacrings than in all the laws of world creation and world existence. I noted at the time that in these innumerable models and descriptions of proposed mechanisms, the idea of using what is called the force of weight predominated, and the idea of employing the force of weight they explained thus. A very complicated mechanism was to lift some weight, and this latter was then to fall, and by its fall set the whole mechanism in motion, which motion would again lift the weight, and so on and so on. The result of it all was that thousands were shut up in lunatic asylums. Thousands more, having made this idea their dream, either began to fail altogether to fulfill even those being duties of theirs which had somehow or other in the course of many years been established there, or to fulfill them in such a way as couldn't be worse. I don't know how it would have all ended up if some quite demented being there with one foot already in the grave, such a one as they themselves call an old dotard, and who had previously somehow acquired a certain authority, had not proved, by calculations known only to himself, that it was absolutely impossible to invent perpetual motion. Now, after your explanation, I can well understand how the cylinder of the system of Archangel Haraton works. It is the very thing of which these unfortunates there dreamed. Indeed, of the cylinder of the system of Archangel Haraton, it can safely be said that with atmosphere alone given, it will work perpetually without needing the expenditure of any outside materials. And since the world without planets, and hence without atmospheres, cannot exist, then it follows that as long as the world exists, and in consequence atmospheres, the cylinder barrels invented by the great Archangel Haraton will always work. Now, just one more question occurs to me about the material from which this cylinder barrel is made. I wish very much, my dear Captain, that you would roughly tell me what materials it is made of, and how long they can last, requested Beelzebub. To this question of Beelzebub's, the captain replied as follows. Although the cylinder barrel does not last forever, it can certainly last a very long time. Its chief part is made of amber with platinum hoops, and the interior panels of the walls are made of anthracite, copper, and ivory, and a very strong mastic, unaffectable either by Peshakir or by Tenoler or by Salia Kuryapa, or even by the radiations of cosmic concentrations. But the other parts, the captain continued, both the exterior levers and the cogwheels must certainly be renewed from time to time, for though they are made of the strongest metal, yet long use will wear them out. And as for the body of the ship itself, its long existence can certainly not be guaranteed. The captain intended to say still more, but at that moment a sound, like the vibrations of a long minor chord of a far-off orchestra of wind instruments, resounded through the ship. With an apology, the captain rose to leave, explaining as he did so that he must be needed on very important business, since everybody knew that he was with his right reverence, and would not venture to trouble the ears of his right reverence for anything trifling. Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson, Chapter 7, pages 76 through 78. Becoming aware of genuine being duty. After the captain of the ship had gone, Beelzebub glanced at his grandson, and, noticing his unusual state, asked him solicitously and with some anxiety, "What is the matter, my dear boy? What are you thinking so deeply about?" Looking up at his grandfather with eyes full of sorrow, Hassan said thoughtfully, "I don't know what is the matter with me, my dear grandfather, but your talk with the captain of the ship has brought me to some exceedingly melancholy thoughts. Things of which I have never before thought are now a-thinking in me. Thanks to your talk, it has gradually become very clear to my consciousness that in the universe of our endlessness, everything has not always been such as I now see and understand. Formerly, for instance, I should never have allowed such thoughts associatively to proceed in me, as that this ship, on which we are now flying, has not always been as it is at this moment. Only now have I come very clearly to understand that everything we have at the present time, and everything we use, in a word, all the contemporary amenities and everything necessary for our comfort and welfare, have not always existed, and did not make their appearance so easily. It seems that certain beings in the past have, during very long periods, labored and suffered very much for this, and endured a great deal which perhaps they even need not have endured. They labored and suffered only in order that we might now have all this and use it for our welfare. And all this they did, either consciously or unconsciously, just for us, that is to say, for beings quite unknown and entirely indifferent to them. And now, not only do we not thank them, but we do not even know a thing about them, but take it all as in the natural order, and neither ponder nor trouble ourselves about this question at all. I, for instance, have already existed so many years in the universe, yet the thought has never even entered my head that perhaps there was a time when everything I see and have did not exist, and that everything was not born with me, like my nose. And so, my dear and kind grandfather, now that, owing to your conversation with the captain, I have gradually, with all my presence, become aware of all this, there has arisen in me, side by side with all this, the need to make clear to my reason why I personally have all the comforts which I now use, and what obligations I am under for them. It is just because of this that at the present moment there proceeds in me a process of remorse. Having said this, Hussein drooped his head and became silent, and Beelzebub, looking at him affectionately, began to speak as follows. I advise you, my dear Hussein, not to put such questions to yourself yet. Do not be impatient. Only when that period of your existence arrives which is proper for your becoming aware of such essence questions, and you actively mentate about them, will you understand what you must do in return. Your present age does not yet oblige you to pay for your existence. The time of your present age is not given you in which to pay for your existence, but for preparing yourself for the future, for the obligations becoming to a responsible three-brained being. So, in the meantime, exist as you exist. Only do not forget one thing, namely, at your age it is indispensably necessary that every day at sunrise, while watching the reflection of its splendor, you bring about a contact between your consciousness and the various unconscious parts of your general presence. Try to make this state last, and to convince the unconscious parts, as if they were conscious, that if they hinder your general functioning, they, in the period of your responsible age, not only cannot fulfill the good that befits them, but your general presence, of which they are a part, will not be able to be a good servant of our common endless Creator, and by that will not even be worthy to pay for your arising and existence. I repeat once more, my dear boy, try in the meantime not to think about these questions, which at your age it is still early for you to think about. Everything in its proper time. Now, ask me to tell you whatever you wish, and I will do so. As the captain has not yet returned, he must be occupied there with his duties and will not be coming back so soon. Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson, Chapter 8, pages 79 through 80. The impudent brat Hussein, Beelzebub's grandson, dares to call men slugs. Hussein immediately sat down at Beelzebub's feet and coaxingly said, "Tell me anything you wish, my dear grandfather. Anything you will tell me will be the greatest joy for me, if only because it is you who relate it." "No," objected Beelzebub. "You yourself ask what interests you most of all. It will give me at the present moment much pleasure to tell you about just whatever you particularly wish to know." "Dear and kind grandfather, tell me then something about I forget. Yes, about those
slugs.
What? About what slugs? Asked Beelzebub, not understanding the boy's question.
Don't you remember, Grandfather, that a little while ago when you spoke about the three-centered beings breeding on the various planets of that solar system where you existed for such a long time, you happened to say that on one planet, I forget how you called it, that on that planet exist three-centered beings who, on the whole, are like us, but whose skin is a little slimier than ours?
Ha ha ha! Laughed Beelzebub. You are surely asking about those beings who breed on the planet Earth and who call themselves men.
Yes, Grandfather, yes, just that. Tell me about those men beings a little more in detail. I should like to know more about them, concluded Hussein.
Then Beelzebub said, About them I could tell you a great deal, for I often visited that planet and existed among them for a long time, and even made friends with many of those terrestrial three-brained beings. Indeed, you will find it very interesting to know more about these beings, for they are very peculiar. There are many things among them which you would not see among any other beings of any other planet of our universe. I know them very well, because their arising, their further development, and their existence during many, many centuries by their time calculation have occurred before my eyes. And not only their own arising occurred before my eyes, but even the accomplished formation of the planet itself on which they arise and exist. When we first arrived on that solar system and settled on the planet Mars, nothing yet existed on that planet Earth, which had not yet even had time to cool off completely after its concentration. From the very beginning, this same planet has been the cause of many serious troubles to our endlessness. If you wish, I will tell you first of all about the events of general cosmic character connected with this planet, which were the cause of the said troubles of our endlessness.
Yes, my dear Grandfather, said Hussein. Tell me first about this. It will surely be quite as interesting as everything you relate.